So, hey everybody, this is Terry Mitchell, and thank you for joining me wherever you are in the world in regards to today's interview series. This is the Voice on Fire interview series, and if anyone's not familiar with having watched or listened to any of these interviews, my intention is to interview and speak with some pretty amazing people that are change makers, life influencers. They're difference makers. They're people that have probably created something, curated something, or founded something that has an impact of a positive nature somewhere on their local community, the people around them, and potentially the global village. Today, I'll be speaking with Craig Marchant. Hi, Craig. How are you?
Good, thanks, Terry. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. And Craig's message is a pretty important one, and particularly in these times of COVID-19 and the isolation and lockdowns taking place globally. Here in Australia, we've obviously been affected as well. And the issue that we're talking about, or the condition we're talking about in terms of personal health and well-being, is mental illness and mental health. Craig's experience is a personal one, and particularly with these stresses of COVID-19, I think this is a really relevant message to be discussing, not just because of COVID, but because high stress situations like this can really bring out the times when people are not coping or don't know how to cope, and can exacerbate a particular mental health condition in any person that may have one. So Craig, thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure. And just so that anyone who is listening may be aware, we are aware we're working from home, and Craig does have a little boy that's in the background. So if you hear a little bit of noise, or if he decides to, make himself present and known, we just work with it. We'll work around it. So thanks for joining me, Craig.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Now, I've just lost a bit of volume on there for you. Just bear with me 1 second.
That's okay.
It's great to have you here, Craig. So share with our listeners a little bit about yourself from a perspective of your story. I'd love to know more.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously my name's Craig Marchant. I'm 38 years old, and I've had depression since I was 12 years old. And I was diagnosed with schizophrenia when I was about 17. So I had, numerous ups and downs over the years. There were unfortunately a number of suicide attempts in my early 20s when my mental health was probably the worst that it could have been. But after a couple of years, some intensive therapy, I managed to get much better and be able to function again. I will note that throughout that whole period of time, I was actually working full time. So I still managed to hold down a job. It was just that job was all I lived for. I didn't have any family around where I was. So there was that. And then, I started having a family with my first wife. I've got 3 kids, Chelsea, Jasmine and Zachary. And then I've got another 2 with my second wife, Aiden and Jace. Aiden's the one that's out in the other room. So we'll see if we can keep him out there. I founded one of Australia's more successful web hosting and domain name companies back in 2008 with a couple of friends. And I worked there until it was about 2017, the end of 2017, I finished up there because so back in 2016, I went and trekked the Inca Trail for the Leukemia Foundation. I was looking for something that I could really sink my teeth into, and this was something that was both challenging but also giving back to the community.
Awesome.
So the Inca Trail was a massive eye opener for me. I was the second day, and I was feeling quite tired already. The guide pulled me to the side, and I said, I don't think I can do this. And he said, look, you could go back and catch the train to Machu Picchu and, meet up with everyone there. But he said, you've got mild altitude sickness, which is, it was just mild. But he said, I believe you can do it because I've seen bigger and heavier people do it. And it was that belief from just that random person, for want of a better term, that just said, I believe in you, you can do it. And that just made such a massive impact on me. And I didn't even realize it at the time, but it sort of energized me. And I managed to go on and complete day 2 and complete day 3 and day 4. And day 4 is when we made it to the sun gates there at Machu Picchu. And it was absolutely amazing. And just to think that that was something that I did. I did it for me, and that belief in myself. And that was something that I've never really had, that strong belief in myself. It's always been, I was a techo and I hid out in the back room, as I like to say, I hid in my cave, and I let other people do the talking and, presenting an image. And that was the first time that I'd really ever stepped outside of that and gone, you know what, I can actually do this if I want. And it doesn't matter about my mental health. Like, so be it. Everyone's got, their problems and their own disabilities in life. Why should I let that stop me from doing what I want?
Wow.
So yeah, that was that. So that's probably a bit longer than a quick rundown, but
that's important that people can understand, because I'm sure there'll be a number of people that'll tune into this that have had either their own personal experience of a mental health condition. Now, mental health and mental illnesses, they come in a whole different swag of diagnoses, anything from mild anxiety to social, crippling social anxiety, which I myself have had, and I know the impact it had on me, from mild bouts of depression to absolutely crippling depression, through to the more serious diagnoses, which you yourself know about. They're things like schizophrenia and the disorders that are classified by the various medical journals. So it's important that people can find a way to relate, and just hearing your story and understanding that you were willing to take a risk. I'm really interested to hear about what it was that was the mindset that was taking place for you when you were thinking about, and I mean just thinking about, the Inca Trail. What was going through your mind? What was happening in your world at the time that you went from just the everyday hide in the cave, do your job, not be very social, to a sudden personal mega challenge like that? What was going through your mind?
Yeah, look, I had started, I was still working, but I'd started to feel quite disconnected with, with work. And I felt more like an outsider, and I was like, okay, I was thinking maybe I should finish up at that point. This was back in 2015, 2016. But I was like, look, maybe, I can do something else. And actually, as it turns out, my mum was actually, she did something similar. She did a ride around Cambodia and Vietnam for Plan Australia, and their goal is, unfortunately, the girls in a lot of those countries, they don't get a good education or any education because it's more favoured towards the men, the boys. So they were actually riding to raise funds for Plan Australia to help for the girls to be able to go to school. And just when Mum was talking to me about it, I remember when she first told me she was doing it, I was like, wow, that's really out there for you. And she said, yeah, it is, but I want to challenge myself. So I was really proud of her on that point. And, she went and did the cycle, and she went through the same sort of recognition as I did. She got to a point, she was ready to call it quits and say, no, I've done the wrong thing here. And then just this push from someone external was everything she needed to keep her going. And she came back and she was on fire. She enjoyed it so much. And so when she was telling me about it, I was like, wow, that sounds like something that perhaps I would want to do. And so this was back in November of 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, well, maybe I need to look into it. So Mum did the adventure through, so it's run through a company called Inspired Adventures.
Okay.
And basically the charities go to Inspired Adventures, and Inspired Adventures sets up a challenge, for the charities, so whether that be, Mount Kilimanjaro, Mount Everest,
Wow.
the Inca Trail, the Great Wall of China. So all these different places, and that's, who you sign up through, and you do all your training and everything through before you go there. But yeah, so I was feeling quite disconnected from work, and I thought maybe this will give me something to aim for. I'm very much a goal person where I need to be aiming for something.
Okay.
And because, work had gone to the point where when we first started, it was really busy, and I was, we were working insane hours. We'd work through the day, and then at nighttime we'd go into the city and we'd be working with servers and networks and data centers. So there was always something going on. There was always that next level goal to aim for.
Yeah.
But, the company had grown so much in that time that all of a sudden I wasn't quite so busy anymore. In fact, we were handing it off to our staff to actually do, increasingly sitting there going, okay, this is getting a bit boring. And so, yeah, that boredom obviously led to, what am I going to do? And then when Mum's talked about it, I was just like, I've got to do it. I've got to do something. And I did I actually thought of the Leukemia Foundation because I've previously done the World's Greatest Shave for them.
Okay. Yeah.
We did that a couple of years before 2015. So I was like, that's a worthy charity to do something for. And I saw that the Inca Trail was coming up, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. So I just signed up, and yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, excellent. So it was obviously a monumental change from what you were used to, and you mentioned that you do your training and things like that as preparation before you go and do something quite so life-changing. What would you say was the most significant life-changing aspect of that 4-day experience? What was the most life-changing for you personally?
For me personally, it was actually self-belief in realizing that, yes, I can actually do these things if I put my mind to it. And just because it's not in front of a computer, it doesn't mean I can't do it either. That was always one of those big things. I'm very good with computers, but I always thought it was just my creativity was limited to computers itself. But then I suddenly realized, oh, it's actually not just limited to computers. I can do these other things as well. And so really, like, the biggest thing I took away from there was that self-belief that if I put my mind to it, I can do it.
Awesome. Excellent. And that leads into another question for you. I'm obviously aware of some of the extra activities you've undertaken. That's how we connected previously back in 2019. The experience that you undertook to challenge yourself yet again was to take on public speaking. Share a little bit about that, because I know that's part of your journey now.
Yeah. So basically, it was in 2018, and actually it was 2017. I attended the Capital Pitch Entrepreneurs Conference in Melbourne, and it was in October. And it was while I was at that actual conference that I saw an individual whose name is Sam Cawthorne present up on stage, and I was absolutely mesmerized by Sam. I thought he was unequivocally amazing. And he was relating his story, and I was like, he was saying that everyone's got a bit of a story inside of them, and some people just don't know it. And I was like, I've got a story, So anyway, in 2018, pardon me, I went to a one-day workshop with Sam Cawthorne, and once again got to listen to him talk and go through everything. And that same feeling was there again. It was like, oh wow, he's, you know, it wasn't just a once off. He's really, really good. And at the end of it, they offered, you know, their Speakers Institute Premier Boot Camp, which I was like, you know what, I'm terrified of public speaking. It was one of those things that I just didn't like to do at all. I could hold a conversation with someone one-to-one, but when it came to a group or even, you know, larger, it just wasn't going to happen. So I thought I'll sign up and this will help me. And, you know, we'll see where we go from there. So in 2019, I did the actual boot camp in February, I think it was. And boy, oh boy, did that challenge me too. And it challenged me the same way that the Inca Trail challenged me, but it was just in a different area. And that different area was public speaking. So, you know, the first day I got up on stage and I think I managed a grand total of 10 seconds where I managed to actually talk. So it wasn't so...
At least you managed that though.
Yeah, that's it. I did get up there, so I've got to give myself that. And then on the second day, we were doing our sort of trial presentation for the third day. And I got 2 minutes, 30 seconds, which I didn't think was too bad. They asked me to stay up on stage for the full 6 minutes and just to talk about anything. And so I think I relayed a funny story about school, you know, where I was being a bit of a bugger to a friend and, you know, set up a program to message all the computers around the room over and over and then just reboot so no one could track who did it. So I relayed that story and everyone laughed. So I thought, oh, okay. So, you know, I did have that ability in me. And then it was really the third day where I just knew I had it. I don't know why. I just knew that I was going to be okay and that I could do this. And so I got up on stage and I presented my 6-minute presentation and I nailed it. I was really, really happy with how it went and my delivery and everything, and everyone was really happy with it. So that really started my journey into professional speaking. And then I also did that presentation that when you were running it, Terry, I think it was September.
Was indeed, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a really good experience too. You know, being able to get up on stage and talk to a room of people about, you know, about mental health and the things that mattered to me. And yeah,
you got an incredible reception to that as well. The people were absolutely blown away by your story. So it was really valuable just to witness, as I had the pleasure to do, to sit back and just see how people responded to your story. And it was, you were really, really so well presented. It was such a good experience. And I say kudos to you, hats off to you.
Yeah, no, so it was, you know, it's been really good. And I've really enjoyed it and I still enjoy it. And I'm hoping that I get more opportunities now and into the future to present, you know, about mental health, because I hope that people can look at my life story and say, hey, he went through all this. I've been through all this. If he can do it, why can't I do it? That's what I want people to take away from and go, if he can do it, I know I can do it as well. Yeah, and that's the important thing to me, is that people don't let their, you know, their mental health disability hold them back, because that's the worst thing that can happen to anyone, if you ask me, is to live a mediocre life when
All right, I don't know quite what happened there. We had a little bit of a technical glitch just happen and the Zoom stopped recording there for a moment. Craig, you were just saying that if you were able to overcome some of those challenges and if you could take on some of the things that were really quite out of your comfort zone and manage your mental health that way, it would be an inspiration to others. And I totally agree with you in terms of, if you're able to walk the Inca Trail and take on public speaking, you know, it doesn't have to be those same things that someone else with a mental health or mental illness situation going on in their lives needs to do, but it certainly can be an inspiration to them so that they feel that, hey, maybe there is hope for them to manage their situation differently.
Well, that's the thing, with mental illness, it obviously gets you down, and you don't want to do as much. But I want to, for people to be able to look at it and say, okay, things can get better here. Like, and it's so hard because, when you're down like that, that's the last thing you want to do is act anything. It's so difficult to motivate yourself. And I still have days where, it's so hard. Like right now at the moment, I'm doing a university course. I actually signed up to do a Bachelor of Psychological Sciences with Swinburne Online, because I realized that I had all this experience of a personal nature, and as a father to a daughter who has mental health illness. But I wanted something more. I wanted to have a little bit more in-depth view of mental health so that I could help other people if I was talking to them. It's not my obvious focus, but every little bit of extra information I've got, I want that relayed onto other people so they can see and can do these things.
Yeah, for sure.
And even with my mental health being a problem, there's an option through Swinburne, and I think through all universities, actually, to be honest, where you can get a mental health plan set up with them, so you can get a little bit of extra time on your assignments and things like that to help if you're having problems with your mental health. So there really is no barrier. Like everything I've looked at, I haven't hit a wall at. It's always been, okay, there's a way around that. It's just so hard when you're in a depressive state to actually see that and to get around it. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to take medication. I don't want to go see a psychologist. But I would say to those people, the medicine isn't going to fix you. That's one of the big things, misconceptions, is the medicine won't fix you. All the medicine's going to do is bring you to a level that you can operate at again. I like to say it brings you to an even keel, and then, you can talk to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, therapist, whatever, who can help you work through your actual problems. Because, from what I've discovered over my lifetime is I've got both emotional and chemical imbalances. So, and they both play off each other, something chronic. So I need the medicine to help level me out. And then I have all that extra work that I've done over the years to actually get myself to a point. But as I said, even I have those days where it's a struggle to do anything. It really is. That's the other thing I want people to see too, is the real me. I don't want them to say, oh, the Craig that does the Inca Trail, the Craig that does professional speaking, the Craig that does all these wonderful things. That's all well and good, but just remember there's the Craig that some days it's a struggle to get out of bed.
Yeah.
There's the Craig that has trouble getting his uni assignments done. Real world problems that, it just shows a complete picture of me. So someone doesn't get this, oh, it's always roses. It's not always roses.
Yeah, exactly.
I wish it was, but it's not.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important part of understanding any sort of mental illness is it affects everyone differently. Everyone's got their own different life circumstances happening. And it isn't just champagne and roses all the way. I mean, even for myself, I still have major battles with social anxiety. And for me to step out and be public and be able to run events like I did last year and take to the microphone and talk as if that's the most natural thing in the world for me. Once I can put myself into that position to make that my choice, I'm okay. But all of the mental roadblocks and the mental hurdles and the work that you have to do to shift yourself from that, I don't know if I can do it. And it's not that you doubt your ability. It's a lot to do with knowing that the mental effort that you have to put in to get to that point is quite taxing because there's a lot of work you have to do within yourself to go from a point of very, very flat, as I call it, my dark days. If I'm in the dark day, it's really, really challenging to move myself out of that position. And it's not because I like to wallow in self-pity. And I want people to also understand, people that have a mental health condition of any kind, majority of them do not sit around feeling sorry for themselves and wallowing in self-pity. It's not about that at all. They are oftentimes just so overwhelmed by just the smallest things in life, because as you've experienced and as probably has been part of your diagnosis, the chemicals in the brain, maybe they're not working so well that day. And so things just take on a different slant. And it doesn't matter where your mindset is at. There's a lot of work you have to do to go from this day that's not so good and this mindset that's not so good to this one over here, which is the public one that people think, God, she's got it under control. Gee, he's doing well.
Yeah.
It's not that we put on a mask. It's just that we have to work really, really hard in ourselves to shift from this position to this position. And we don't really want people seeing all of this ugly stuff a lot of the time, because it does feel pretty ugly. And a lot of the time, it's not out of shame or humiliation or embarrassment. It's just perhaps just misunderstanding. People won't, unless they've been through it or know somebody that's going through it, it's very hard to understand it. So a lot of the time, that's why, if that's your experience, it's certainly mine, we kind of tend to keep that stuff below the level so people can't really be exposed to it. But then there's also that other side that it's like, well, maybe they do need to be exposed to it. Maybe they do need to see there's just some days where it's not beer and Skittles. It just is. And it doesn't matter, you can put on a smile, but it's not smiling here and it's not smiling here. It doesn't matter what you do. So I'm wondering if that's, you're doing a lot of nodding, so I'm getting the impression that you're understanding what I'm saying there.
Yes, yeah, no, definitely. It's yeah, it is. It's, you know, it's not always sunshine and roses, and there's that tendency to keep it hidden from people. You know, like I'm very good at masking how I'm feeling. I can be feeling really terrible inside, and I can push off this persona, so to speak. But I realize that a lot of the time it's not actually helpful, because people don't get a real picture of who you are. They, you know, and that's how I think a lot of people fly under the radar with depression. You know, they've learned to hide it so well that, you know, nobody knows what's going on until it's too late. And that's not good, you know. And I can understand, having gone through it myself, why people do it. But if I had my time all over again, I think I would show it, you know, my vulnerability more often than what I had. So people did know, okay, it's a struggle today, but you're still doing it. You're still doing it. You're still getting the job done. So.
And I think that echoes a good shift in mindset that we all become more aware of, is patting ourselves on the back and crediting ourselves and realizing that how we see ourselves is not how others see us. And on the flip side of that, some people, I often say, and this is something that I've particularly learned in the last few years, there are a number of people who aspire to be where I am at right now, because they are somewhere where I've probably been. And I've moved on from there, from a lot of the work that I've done on myself. But I realise that there are some people who probably are back there who look at me and go, wow, I wish my life was like that. So I'm always very humbled and always grateful for the fact that I was gifted with the ability to make the changes. Some people will struggle more than I probably did, but it's that recognition that, hey, credit ourselves. We've gotten through some stuff that wasn't easy. And you mentioned the suicide attempts. I mean, I myself was in that situation when I was suicidal at 13, and my one attempt that was an absolute attempt failed at 17. So understanding that when we're faced with that knowledge within ourselves, I know where I've come from. I know how dark and how awful some of the things I went through were. So I know that where I am now is pretty bloody amazing. And I'm able to see that and recognize that, which is why I take great pleasure in such things as the Voice on Fire series, because it's giving a voice and a platform to people like yourself who have a message that others out there need to hear and can take some form of comfort from. And on that note, one thing I'd really like to share, or to get you to share, is I believe you've got a really great project coming up that you're working on that is kind of inspired a little bit from your Inca Trail experience. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, so I found that the Inca Trail was quite an amazing journey for me. I've sat back and I've sort of wondered about this now for a while. And I think that other people, the same way my mum had her amazing change and you know, her transformation, and my amazing change and transformation, I think other people with mental health issues would also benefit from these from those sort of challenges. And so I've decided to set up a new business called Destination Inspiration. And the idea behind that is I want to take groups of people on sort of amazing adventures. So the first one that I'm thinking of doing, and hopefully next year in June, if everything's all back to normal by then, is actually take a small group of people to do the Larapinta Trail in the Northern Territory.
Wow.
Which is, by all accounts, it's got good reviews, and it's quite an amazing thing. And you also get to interact with the Aboriginal elders there as well, which I think it's quite a good thing. And you know, it's a challenge that it might not be quite up there the same way that the Inca Trail was, but it is still quite challenging. And I think that having gone through the experiences that I did on the Inca Trail, that will be one of the more helpful things that I can do for people is to recognise that. So if I may, I'll just share a quick story about the Inca Trail.
Yeah,
so when we got to the end of the Inca Trail, you know, I felt really exhilarated and really, you know, on fire. And then when we got to back to Cusco, which is where we started out, where sort of our base of operations were, I'm sitting down on the stairs at our accommodation, and the team leader actually came up to me and he said, "How are you feeling?" And I said, "Oh, I'm feeling a bit down, actually, to be honest, but I don't know why." And he said, "It's okay, mate." He said, "It happens. You know, I don't advertise it, but I've got depression as well." And he said, "And every time you know, we finish one of these things, I feel down too." And I said to him, "Well, you know, what do you think it is that's causing this?" And he said, "Well, I think that it's because we've completed our goal. We've reached, you know, what we wanted to do. And all of a sudden we go, oh, what's next?" And you don't know what's next. You know, and so there's that natural sort of down feeling. So I think that having gone through that and the experiences I did on the trail and that, I'd be in a perfect place to actually help guide these groups of people on these amazing adventures. And the hope is that, you know, it won't just be the Larapinta Trail. I definitely want to take people on the Inca Trail because I loved the Inca Trail. I thought it was absolutely just amazing, and I so want to do it again. I'd like to take people on the Great Wall of China because I think that would also be quite amazing. And even I would even love to do Mount Kilimanjaro, which is it's a fairly complex sort of walk, that one, you know, trek, but I think it would be quite amazing. So that's what I'm hoping with Destination Inspiration, is that we can, you know, get people involved in it. I've got a very specific client type that I think is suitable for that. You know, someone that's not stable yet in their mental health, I don't think it's a good fit for them, because you kind of need to be stable in yourself, so that, because you're going to get these sort of wild fluctuations, I guess you'd say, in how you feel. You know, sometimes you're going to be up here, sometimes you're going to be down here. You know, and you need to be able to cope with that. So, you know, I can definitely help guide people through, but they're also going to need to do a bit of work themselves, and so they really need to be in a stable sort of arrangement.
Mm.
So I'm hoping to set up quite a number of programs, for destination inspiration, sort of taking people from, the whole crisis point, and work them through my system to get them to the point where they're actually capable of doing these amazing treks.
Yeah.
Because as I said, I think that they're going to be, if other people can experience what I did and suddenly realize that the world is their oyster and they can do anything they want, if they just believe in themselves, that's what I want.
Yeah, awesome. No, I really, really like that story. It was so valuable to hear that once you've achieved something, there's this need to overcome the disappointment of having nothing else to look forward to. And
Yeah.
I think we have that challenge within us when we've got some sort of psychological issue going on, no matter what level it's playing at, that unless we're achieving something, there is a slight tendency to feel like we're not worthy, we're not valuable, we're not good at something, and we can underplay ourselves. But the moment there's something that really captures our attention and we want to put ourselves into it, it's like we shine again. And I know from my own experience, when I took to the microphone for the first time, I realized that the one thing I liked about it was knowing that people were actually listening to what I was saying, finding what I was saying valuable. And then I realized being able to talk is nothing. Anyone can talk. We learn from the moment we're about 12 months old to start mumbling our words and putting them together, but we're not always listened to. And the whole point with that is we can all learn to talk, but it's whether we actually have something meaningful to say. And a lot of the times we don't learn how to communicate well. And so my journey's been about that, which is obviously why Voice on Fire has played a role in where I'm at, and the events that I ran last year, giving people the platform and the opportunity to speak and share their message. Because the way that you've shared what you've shared, I know there will be people who will hear this and will start to feel that, wow, I can relate to what they're saying. That's me. Or I know somebody who's like that. I'm going to get them to reach out to Craig, because I think what Craig's got coming up, the whole idea of doing an adventure, imagine how life-changing that'll be for the person that they've got in mind. So I think it's really valuable that you've got such a major inspiration ahead of you, and I can see it being an absolute success. I'll be glad when COVID-19's done and dusted, so that we can start looking at what the new normal and the new world looks like for us, and what adventures we can in fact undertake. So Craig, what I'd like to do is wrap up this by saying, well done for what you've been doing. It's quite amazing. And I've got a couple of key questions to ask you to sum up where we've been at today. What is it you do? Who do you do it for? And why do you do it?
So, what do I do? I am, obviously I'm a professional speaker, but I want to be an inspiration to others on their mental health journey, and to show them that there is a better life out there, and that you can do it. Why do I do it? Because I'm really passionate about helping people with their mental health issues, and as I said, I want them to be able to look at themselves and say, hey, he did it, and if he can do it, I can do it. And that's what I want from those people. I want them to look and say, I can do this, even if it looks really, really hard, I can definitely do it.
Excellent. And where can people find you if they want to get in contact with you? Do you have a website address, for example?
Yes, I do. So you can find me at craigmarchant.com. That's my sort of website that covers everything at the moment.
Just .com, not .com.au?
.com.au or .com. I've got both.
Okay, so it's both. Excellent. Yep.
So that's where that techie help comes in good.
Okay.
But I've also got a free ebook up there on demystifying mental health. And you're welcome to just plug your email in and download a copy of that. and there's a contact form there. So if you would like to reach out to me to find out more information, there is an actual destination inspiration website as well, but it's not 100% set up yet. So you're probably better off hitting craigmarchant.com for the moment, and
good.
ask us questions. Even if it's not about the trek and you've just got something in general you'd like to ask. I'm quite happy to answer any sort of questions whatsoever. Just use the contact us form on the website, and I'll get back to you.
Awesome. That sounds really cool. So for those who have any sort of mental health condition, or if you know somebody that has, or if you're worried that maybe you do, perhaps you've had some dark days, or maybe you've noticed that perhaps you're just not coping with things, it's always a good idea to reach out. Now, because this is quite a significant issue, I highly recommend that if you've noticed from listening into this interview that perhaps you're not quite so okay, just know that it is okay to not be okay, and reach out. Either to Craig if you need to, because obviously he's a very approachable person who will definitely understand what you're going through. Ideally, reach out to your medical practitioner or a support person that can put you in contact with the right medical support. Is nothing to be ashamed about in any way, shape or form. And in fact, it's liberating to, in fact, acknowledge where you are at, how you are, and the fact that you're not alone. Craig certainly is indicating that he knows what it feels like, and Craig's proving to be a personal success within his own life and about to take a massive change to the world with regards to helping others in this condition. It's nothing to be ashamed of. So feel free to reach out. There's always somebody who cares, who wants to listen. Craig, I'd like to thank you for your time. And I noticed our little friend in the background didn't show up, so we got through the interview quite successfully without him. But no, thank you for your time, and it's been a pleasure. And is there any last minute message you'd like to share?
Yeah, look, as you said, don't be, there we go. It had to happen. Look, it is okay to be down. It is okay to have days like that. And don't beat yourself up, but definitely do go see your GP, to get some help.
All right, awesome. Well, I'll let you go and be dad to the little boy, and thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure, Craig.
Thank you so much.
Mickey.